We've got to get gun owners to vote. Because you know what? I don't know what it is. Perhaps it's a form of rebellion because you're rebellious people, aren't you? But gun owners don't vote. What is that all about?
The disgraced former President Donald Trump spoke at the National Rifle Association's annual meeting in Dallas, Texas on Saturday. He kept the audience waiting for over 2 hours. By the time he finally arrived, he delivered a nearly hour-and-a-half-long speech filled with hate speech and bizarre rhetoric, making no sense whatsoever. The only moment that garnered significant media attention was when he appeared to freeze for more than 30 seconds before continuing. Let's delve into the weirdness, the hate speech, and the lies he spreads about not just Democrats and Joe Biden, but about the country as a whole, claiming it's in terrible shape and only he can fix it. This is a classic tactic used by dictators and despots, creating a problem that supposedly only they can solve. But let's examine his words.
But under crooked Joe Biden, everything you stand for is under threat like never before. Our Second Amendment, which is largely why you're here, I mean, that's the biggest statement for you. You know, when I go and make speeches at different places, it's always important. But today, this is the big statement. It's under siege.
These are blatant lies about Democrats wanting to abolish the Second Amendment. In reality, Democrats are pushing for gun safety legislation, aiming to remove weapons of war from our streets. There's never been any talk of confiscating guns in America. It's simply untrue. For decades, Republicans have claimed Democrats are coming for your guns, yet it hasn't happened because it's not their agenda. In fact, gun safety legislation is something most gun owners support. This is just propaganda to scare gun owners into voting Republican, fearing they'll lose their guns. Another falsehood the media fails to correct.
I'm being indicted for you, and never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom.
Now, you're probably tired of Trump's voice, as am I, and I apologize for having to play some of it. So let's speed things up a bit, shall we?
They're sending everybody into our country. I mean, think of it. We have these people coming into our country. We don't want them in our country. They're from prison. They're gang members. They're drug dealers. They're rapists. We have people coming into our country. No country can sustain what's happening to us. And they don't check them. They have no idea who they are. It's not just South America. It's all over the world.
More lies about immigration, painting immigrants as criminals without any evidence. This is simply hate speech and negative rhetoric aimed at immigrants.
We're the party of common sense as we speak. The Biden administration is trying to crush independent firearms dealers by revoking their licenses if they make a single error, even in very unimportant paperwork.
He's lying to an audience of gun owners using emotional blackmail.
Well, I know that better than anybody. They want to take away my rights better than anybody. Worse than Alphonse Capone. Al Capone was indicted twice. I got indicted 4 times. I never heard the word. What's an indictment? What's an indictment, please?
And here he goes again, idolizing Al Capone, someone he looks up to. This arch-criminal is put on a pedestal by Trump, who admires criminals and dictators. He's thrilled to have more indictments than Capone. It's baffling how this man can be considered a presidential candidate.
And I heard they were going to try and do it a couple of more times, and the White House said, don't do it, don't do it. You're indicting this guy into the White House. There's a little truth in that. There's a little truth. Because if I go in, they want to put me in jail. Can you believe? They want to put me in jail if I say the truth. So I can't talk about certain things. It says you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, you can't talk. But those are the best things. So when people ask me questions, I'll have to say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. And they're easy questions. They're like softballs. They're so easy to answer.
Claiming that the gag order prevents him from addressing these easy questions, these softball questions again. None of this makes sense. It's further proof of his confused and disordered thinking, muddling his thoughts. He can't make any sense anymore because he repeats this nonsense to different audiences, whether outside the courtroom or at rallies, and he gets his wires crossed. The whole act is a facade. None of it is rooted in truth. He's lying to every audience that listens to him.
But they want to rig that just like they rigged the presidential election of 2020. They want to rig it. This is their form of rigging, and it only happens in third world countries. Never happened here. I appointed nearly 300 pro-Constitution judges to interpret the law as written. It's a record, by the way. And I faced down vile attacks from the radical left who confirmed 3 great Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. They're great.
In this moment, Trump reveals his strategy, boasting about appointing nearly 300 judges who interpret the law supposedly in favor of Republicans. He also brags about his 3 Supreme Court appointments, calling them great because they are willing to hear his immunity case. He knows they'll support him when these cases reach the High Court to save him from jail and prosecution. It's a quid pro quo between these justices and Trump.
On day 1, we will seal the border. We will stop the invasion, and we will send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home right where they belong. Isn't it nice to have a president that doesn't need a frickin' teleprompter? Isn't that nice?
His obsession with himself is evident. Even though he clearly reads half his speech, he insists he doesn't need the teleprompter. It's bizarre and deranged, yet often overlooked. These small details expose who he truly is, an egotist who believes his words alone make something true.
But the saddest thing of all is that crooked Joe Biden has turned your state and the entire country into a dumping ground for the world. In Venezuela, violent crime is down at levels that they've never seen before. It was 67% 3 weeks ago. It's now down to 72%. It's down. Violent crime is down. Where'd you ever hear that?
Trump again distorts facts, presenting them misleadingly to paint a dire picture.
On day 1, we will begin the largest deportation effort in the history of our country. Well, I believe the real number is 16, 17, 18 million people. By the time we get this guy out of office, who I really believe the vote is, we're leading in polls, but I really believe the vote could be a landslide.
Trump fabricates numbers about immigration, casually adding millions without any data to support his claims. He hears snippets from Fox News, vaguely remembers them, and either incorporates them into his speeches or improvises. None of this is factual. It's a tactic to turn American citizens against immigrants, despite most Americans having immigration in their own family histories.
As we secure our border, we will also confront the deadly plague of radical Democrat crime that is devouring our country. Every day, radical left Democrat DAs, U.S. attorneys, and judges are setting loose dangerous and bloodthirsty criminals by the hundreds and hundreds and thousands.
Using inflammatory language like plague and vermin, Trump employs dog-whistle rhetoric designed to resonate with those who share his racist views. He knows his audience at the NRA meetings aligns with this rhetoric, and he exploits their fears.
To indemnify all police officers and law enforcement officials throughout the United States, to protect them from being destroyed by the radical left lunatics.
This reference to George Floyd, who was murdered by Derek Chauvin with a knee to his neck, highlights Trump's aim to indemnify all police officers, absolving them of accountability for their actions. And that, sadly, would mean that the police would again have the authority to detain anyone off the street, take them into custody, or even kill them on the spot without being held accountable. The only reason all this persecution is happening is because I am running for president and leading in the polls. This is false on many levels. He is being prosecuted because he has committed crimes. He has broken serious laws, not minor ones. This individual tried to overturn the U.S. election, stole national secrets, and paid hush money to an adult film star to enhance his chances of winning the 2016 election. This is just a small portion of the numerous crimes for which Donald Trump is being held accountable. He is also using his cunning to delay these trials until after the election. We are witnessing a criminal in plain sight who manipulates his connections within the judiciary, such as with Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida, to prevent the classified documents case from proceeding.
If the radical Democrat extremists get their way, they will have a federal law for abortion in the 7th, 8th, 9th month, and even executing a baby after birth.
Here, Donald Trump begins to lose his train of thought and pauses for a full 30 seconds. Now he transitions into the concluding part of his hate-filled speech, claiming that America is a nation in decline. They use background music to evoke emotion and connect with the audience, a cheap trick to end on a dramatic note. However, Trump's mind faltered. Upon hearing the music, he couldn't recall its purpose. He waited 30 seconds, then remembered to start his final sequence, talking about America being in decline with this dramatic music, trying to underscore the moment. But America is not a nation in decline. In fact, the United States has experienced more growth than almost any other country on the planet post-pandemic. It has record job numbers, record manufacturing, and both the national debt and inflation are decreasing. The narrative that Trump is pushing, that America is dying and only he can save it, simply doesn't hold up. You see, Donald Trump is a liar. He can only tell lies. He wouldn't recognize the truth if it hit him in the face. He is desperate, on the ropes, facing prosecution, and the only thing he knows how to do is put on a show like an autocratic P.T. Barnum. Except this time, no one is buying it. I was going to say he's full of nonsense, but I don't want to use bad language.